Okay. Hi, Andy. We are so excited to have you on this week's series of Lunch with Alums. For those of you who don't know Andy, he graduated from Country Day in '96 and is currently living in Poland. So he is joining us from across the ocean today, and we're really lucky to have him. Kate Mullaney, who's also doing senior project with us this year, is going to be asking Andy the first part of our interview, and then I will be speaking to him for our second part of the interview. So I will turn it over to Kate now.
Yeah, so hi. As a senior, I'm really curious about what type of classes you were interested when you were at Country Day and what activities you did, and if you had a favorite teacher or just what were you interested as a high school student?
Okay, well, first, hi. Thank you for having me. It's great to be here, and I'm really happy to be able to share my experience with Country Day students and the alumni. I joined Country Day. I came to Country Day in 5th grade, and from that point, I was. My whole life, I'd been more interested, say, in humanities than in science. So, skipping forward to upper school, I was involved in a lot of different things. I was on the football team, and I was on the lacrosse team, and I also did drama. So I was really into theater at the time. I did 4 years of drama club, and I was in the drama club's performances all 4 years. I didn't do musical. I wasn't into singing, but I was really into theater. And I was also I was a senior on the 1995 football team that won the state championship. It was a really formative experience for me. Because the year before, when I was a junior, we had gone to the state championship game, and we were up by 20 points or so at halftime, and we ended up losing that game in the highest scoring up to that point Michigan state championship game, and it was devastating. It was absolutely devastating. It was a very talented team. The next year, arguably, we were less talented. Arguably, a lot of talented guys on that team. I wasn't one of them. I was a role player. I started a few games on the offensive line. I was starting long snapper, but other than that, I was a role player. But I worked my tail off like everybody else on that team, and we went back to the state championship and won it that year. So that was a really formative experience in my life. So was drama. So was playing lacrosse, 2 years of varsity. So I enjoyed those things. Like I said, I was really into the humanities. So I really enjoyed history. I had, I think it was one semester class of Civil War history with Mr. Corwin. I don't think he's still there. Mr. Freemuth was my advisor and my English teacher, and he was also involved in the drama club. So he was I was close with him. And of course, I also was very interested in languages. I had, Country Day was unique at the time. I think still is, in that it requires you to learn a language the whole time. Starting from even junior school. In junior school, I had to take French. My first year in 5th grade. I didn't take to that so much. So then in my in 6th and 7th grade, I had the choice of either French or Latin. So I took Latin with a wonderful old lady named Katharina Soll, who was from Germany. She was from Berlin. She had lived through the Berlin airlift and all of those things. And I had known for a long time that I really wanted to learn German. I came from a family where both of my parents were really interested in languages. And German was part of my background. I was always really interested in languages, European culture especially. So finally in 8th grade, I had the opportunity to study German. and I did German from 8th grade through through senior year, Mr. Yurkevich, all 4 years of high school. And so those were, yeah, the main things that I did.
Wow, that's really amazing, especially the football story. I love that.
Well, yeah, talk to anybody who was part of that team, and they'll tell you it was an amazing experience, and it was I don't know if I've ever worked harder for a goal in my life, and I know a lot of guys on that team worked a lot harder. There were some guys who went through some really crazy injuries on that team. It was a really amazing experience. We had great coaches too, of course.
Do you think, like, going through all of that, there were lessons that Country Day was preparing you for that you didn't really know at the time, but now today, looking back, you realized how much Country Day was helping you?
Yeah. Well, I think I like to think that I always knew that Country Day was preparing me better than other schools and other places. I knew that it was a great school. When I was going there, and I think I probably knew the adversity that I was going through, say, on the football team and other things that was preparing me for having to go through adversity. And of course, living in a foreign country adds a degree of difficulty to everything that you go through in life. Imagine the most difficult things that you have to do, or the hard things that you have to do, all of your life events as an adult. Buying a car, buying a house, getting married, whatever, getting a job, whatever. Add cultural differences and linguistic differences on top of that, and so it's really a higher degree of difficulty, which of course Country Day offers in in lots of areas. So there was that. Then there was also, I think, the cultural diversity. I mean, Country Day, when I was going there, and I think it still is now, is just a tremendously diverse school. Since then, I've never been in such a diverse place. And the diversity there, I think, has really served me well, even though, okay, everybody there, except for, the few exchange students or maybe a few foreign students that we had, everybody there was American, but still came from wildly different backgrounds, parents who were immigrants or whatever. I think that has served me very well, because I've had to work in a lot of cross-cultural environments. And of course, also, working in drama, I've done a lot of public speaking in my time. As a journalist, I do a lot of panel discussions, emceeing events and stuff like that. And so public speaking has come in very, very handy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Wow. So as a senior, this past year was preparing us for what college we want to choose. Well, ever since I've been at Country Day, they've been preparing us. But this past year was when we had to decide. So tell me a little bit about your story and how you chose where you wanted to go. And
yeah, well, interestingly enough, as I said, I was really involved in football, lacrosse, and theater. Yeah. And so the school that I wanted to go to, I knew I wanted to go to a place where I could do those three things. Those were the things that I liked the most, plus a school that had a great English program, because I really loved English literature, and a school that where I could continue my German studies. And I was pretty sure that I would want to do a semester abroad, and I did. I can tell you about that if you're interested. So I looked at several schools like that. I knew that I wanted to go to a small school. I loved the individual attention that I got at Country Day. I knew myself and the type of student that I was, and that being somebody in, one of 100 students in a class or something, I was not going to do well. I needed to have that personal relationship with the teacher, somebody I could go right up to and talk to during office hours or after class, and somebody who knew me really well. So, and I also liked that kind of more close-knit environment. So I was looking for small schools where I could play football, where I could play lacrosse, where I could major in theater. because I was pretty sure that that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to major in theater, go into film or theater. So I looked at Amherst and Kenyon, and I looked at Carleton College in Minnesota because that's where my dad went. And then Wittenberg in Ohio was my safety school. And I think that was it. Maybe I had a couple more. Also, there was a small D2 school called St. Vincent's. They recruited me to play lacrosse. I was a goalie in lacrosse. So I got recruited by one little D2 school. I went there and checked it out. But I wasn't interested in that. I didn't really like Wittenberg. I really liked Amherst. And Amherst, I think at the time was ranked like #1 among small colleges when I was looking, and Carleton, where my dad went, was #2 or #3. So I was strongly considering that one, but I went to visit, and Carleton was just way more science focused. My dad's a geologist and oceanographer by education, and it was just way more science focused. And I got into Carleton, and they were even going to let me create my own theater major because they didn't have one, but they were going to let me build one. But it just didn't feel like the right fit for me. I went there. It wasn't because of the cold. I didn't mind the cold, even though it was up in Minnesota. They also only had a lacrosse club, not a lacrosse team, but it was just way more science focused than I was looking for. Then there was Kenyon, and Kenyon, although it wasn't my first choice, Amherst was my first choice, but I didn't get in. It was by far the best fit. It really had that kind of family feeling for me. I was going to be able to play varsity football and lacrosse there. It had a historic English department, and it had a great drama department. Paul Newman went there, and it had, it's had some really great graduates, people who have been in movies and TV that you would recognize who went there. So it was really a perfect fit.
That's great. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, that's really cool. I love the story about the football team just because I feel like I remember that. I think I was probably at that game. Is that the Jeremy Battier caught that pass?
I don't think so. No,
okay.
No.
Never mind.
But,
I was definitely at the game though.
But yeah. No, it was, that 94 game was just totally devastating.
Right.
And that 95 team went through a lot. We went through a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay. So you're at Kenyon and you're a senior, you're doing theater, music. I love theater and English. And I love the way that you thought about kind of where you wanted to go just based on what you were interested in. I think so many students kind of go somewhere based on what their parents would like them to study or something like that. But it seems like you had a really clear path. So if you could just walk us through your career and kind of different things that you've done since you graduated from Kenyon, and how you became interested in what you're doing now, specifically working in Poland, the politics of Central Europe, things like that. We'd love to hear.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, as you said, my path, it was clear, but it was clear only in that I followed my interest. I didn't have really any plan, and not having a plan and not knowing what I was going to do with that skills. Once I kind of knew I wasn't going to do theater, so that was more like when I was in college. I'll get to that in a second. That was kind of scary. My sister, who also went to Country Day, my younger sister, she had a plan from 5 years old that she wanted to be a vet. She's a vet now, so that's okay too, I think. But I didn't, and I did just kind of follow my interests. Now, once I got to college, I did football, lacrosse, English, and theater. Right, those were my main, my 4 main focuses. Oh, and German as well, language. Let me back up a little bit because also in the summer of 1995, my junior year, at Country Day, I won a contest that I won through Country Day. There was a kind of a national contest that was given to German language students throughout the country, where you watched a little video and you took a quiz, and the schools that had the most like 100% on the little quiz after the video got to choose one student that would go on this trip.
Okay.
So I won an all expenses paid trip to Germany.
Wow. Okay, cool.
Through Country Day. And then so for 2 weeks I went. This was when Chrysler was owned by Daimler-Benz.
Okay.
So it was kind of, they were kind of trying to do this Germany-US diplomacy thing. So I ended up going to Germany for 2 weeks. 1 week we went around the country. 1 week I stayed with a family. And then that same summer with the Boy Scouts, I also went to an international jamboree, is what it was called,
Okay.
in the Netherlands. So in '95, just before my senior year, I was in Europe twice for a month total, right?
Okay.
And so I really started to really be interested in being outside of the United States, and especially Europe, the international kind of life. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed meeting other people. Saw culture kind of outside of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So when I'm in college, theater wasn't going so well. It wasn't kind of the place where kind of a football player felt welcome. It was a little cliquey.
Okay.
And it was difficult as a sophomore to kind of get the classes I wanted, whereas my English track was going really well. I really loved it. I was getting the classes and the teachers that I wanted. And so I decided to kind of stick with English language. So I didn't know what I was going to do with it. But I decided to major in English.
Okay.
So I did that, and then I did a semester abroad my junior year, first semester of my junior year in Vienna, Austria, because I wanted to work on my German, and because I wanted to get out of the United States and do some international stuff. That was fantastic. When I was in Vienna, at that time, you could buy this thing called a Eurail pass, where you could just buy one train ticket and travel all over Europe. So with my friends, I went as far north as the Arctic Circle, as far south as Rome, as far east as Krakow, and as far west as Paris from Vienna. So I loved Europe, right? So senior year in college, I knew that I wanted to get out of the United States. It was 2000 was an election year. I felt that the United States was really kind of myopic, and I didn't kind of really like where politics was going, and I wanted to get out and have different experiences. Interestingly, kind of just as a coincidence, I met a Polish girl.
Okay.
And so it's kind of a very long story, because originally we kind of thought we were going to go to Australia. I was going to go to film school, but that ended up not working out. And so I ended up following her to Warsaw. Coming to Warsaw, I didn't have anything to do. So I was 23. And by the way, this I think is important for any, seniors. For a year after college, I was cleaning movie theaters and slinging pizzas. I was delivering pizzas. It's okay. I was applying to film schools in Australia.
Yeah.
And I was saving up money to buy a plane ticket and pay for an apartment once I got wherever it was that I was going.
Sure. And I love that you're bringing that up, because I think as a student, sometimes you look at someone who's successful in their career and what they've done, and you think, oh my goodness, like they just woke up one day and their path was linear and now they're doing what they're doing. But it's great to hear just different stories of how people actually like take lots of different paths and end up getting to where they are now. So we appreciate you sharing that element of it. Yeah.
No, I had a bachelor's degree, and I was cleaning movie theaters nights for $12 an hour, and I was delivering pizzas for tips.
Right, exactly. So tell us a little bit about kind of how you really got into journalism.
The career finally, yeah.
Yeah.
I started off teaching English as a foreign language coming here. For anybody who wants to go abroad after college, you have kind of a mixed skill set, or you don't have any, you don't have like a company recruiting you abroad or something like that. You can always find a school. Mm-hmm. And you can teach English as a foreign language. You don't always necessarily have to have teaching credentials. I worked for a school called Berlitz, which is an international language teaching company some of your audience might know about. And they have their own method that they teach you. And then you go in. And so I did that for like 4 years.
Okay.
And there wasn't really much farther I could go. I really liked it, really enjoyed it. I think I was a good teacher. But there wasn't much further that I could go. And I found, I heard through a friend, a colleague, another teacher, that a position as a copy editor was opening up at a small English language business paper in Warsaw. So I applied for that job and I got it. And then I did both jobs at the same time because I knew that was kind of a better career path for me, but being a copy editor, the pay wasn't great. So I had to kind of supplement that with teaching. And then I started moving up that ladder. It was great working for a small company because you move up the ladder fast. Mm-hmm. So, within that organization where I was doing nightly newsletters and copy editing and writing, it was a small company and we were English language. So it's kind of big fish, small pond kind of situation. So I got to interview, big business CEOs and things like that. It was great. And then I moved up that ladder until, I was 28 and editor-in-chief.
Okay.
So in 2007, I was promoted to editor-in-chief of the paper.
Okay.
And then I managed that for 7 years, and we had I think 4 annual publications. We had the weekly,
sure.
And we had kind of 2 or 3, depending on the year, daily newsletters that were going out. So I had to manage all of that.
When you got the editor-in-chief job, did you feel like that was like a big step up from what you had been doing? Was there a big learning curve there, or did you feel like, based on the time that you had spent on the paper, you were kind of able to easily like slide into that role?
No, there was a big learning curve. I mean, so I had moved up kind of step by step. I had been like a copy editor to kind of like a managing editor to an assistant editor-in-chief. I kind of moved up that way.
Sure.
So I knew how it worked, but being editor-in-chief is a different ball of wax in that, I had to manage people now. I was in charge of hiring and firing people.
Yes. Okay. So the difference there was the people management aspect of it.
That was the big difference. And of course, I was trying to raise our profile and increase our prestige and increase our quality the whole time. And of course, then in 2008, but mainly 2009, there was the financial crash, and that was extremely difficult on publications. I went from being able to offer bonuses to all my employees every quarter to having to cut salaries by 15, 20%.
Right. Yeah. That was probably really
that was extremely difficult.
Yeah. So after that paper that you were the editor-in-chief for, did you then transition to the publication that you're working for now?
No. So then in between, I went to a quarterly, let's call it a quarterly magazine called Poland Today.
Okay.
I had moved up. I'd done just about everything I could at Warsaw Business Journal, which is the previous place. And I went to Poland Today, which I also met. I also learned about the position through kind of people in my network.
Okay.
And that was publication more based on events. So there was a lot of event organization. And that was where a lot of the revenue was coming from. You know, publications were trying to figure out how to make money in that period.
Okay.
So this is 2013, 14, 15. And so that's where I did a lot of my public speaking, and there I got to do a lot of great work to interviewing, politicians and historians, stuff I didn't get to do on the business track, war veterans, stuff like that.
Got it.
So then, but that was a very small company, and it had its own difficulties, and so I moved on. Once again, through people I knew, I learned about geopolitical intelligence services, which is where I work now.
Okay.
And it's a geopolitical analysis firm. We publish reports daily. And we also have kind of a boutique consulting service.
Okay.
It is run by, it's owned by a member of the Liechtenstein royal family, actually. So it's based in Liechtenstein.
Okay.
But the editorial team is based in Warsaw. And I work from home, as I did with Poland Today as well. So I've been working from home.
Okay.
And so that's how I ended up where I am now.
Okay. So what is kind of like your day to day? What are you typically covering? How do you spend your time? Yeah. I just also want to acknowledge it is possible that we might get kicked off of this Zoom in a couple of minutes. If we do, I will send a new link, but I think we should be good.
Sure. Sorry that I've been going on and on.
No, you're good. Just start
anyway, taking a lot of your time.
We should be okay.
Okay. So my day to day, I don't write really very much anymore. I've of course done a lot of freelancing over the years for publications like Politico or the Financial Times.
Okay.
But I'm really busy with what I'm doing now. And what I do now is editing, which means we have a network of more than 100 experts all over the world. They write for us. Sometimes they're native speakers, sometimes they're not. Often they're academics and they write in academic way. Mm-hmm. I have to smooth out text, make sure that it's factually correct. I have to essentially rewrite the text, fact check them, and make them suitable for publication, find the pictures and links and all that kind of thing. Of course, I'm also involved with the entire editorial team. Together, we decide on what to commission authors, what to suggest our authors write about. Our authors send us suggestions. We discuss them, whether they're right for us or not, whether we want to have a report on a particular topic or not. So so that's my daily.
Okay. So have you found when you first, you obviously came to Europe with a major background in languages. So what was the transition like for you? And now I'm sure you're predominantly writing maybe not in English all day. So what was the transition like for you to kind of become acclimated with this, multilingual environment that you're currently in?
It's hard, and it was hard, and I'm not gonna, but it's doable. Not a lot of your audience is going to come to Poland. Polish is one of the hardest European languages to learn. It's an extremely difficult language. But I really liked languages, so I really enjoyed learning it. And, coming to Poland when I was 23 with kind of no other responsibilities other than to kind of get myself on my feet, find a job and an apartment, and then have the rest of the time to myself. I was able to learn the language on my own, study it on my own. And then, I worked at a language school, so I was able to get language lessons there with my colleagues there who were also from around the world, from places like Britain and Ireland. Okay. And we took lessons together. And then for a while, I was getting lessons through Warsaw Business Journal. It was difficult, when I first got, I didn't have cable television when I first got here. So I was like, I had like the TV with like the rabbit ears, and I would only have public television, and they would play like reruns of Adam Sandler movies, and I knew the words to them. So that was how I would like
That's
learn the
helpful.
language.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would watch, once I did get cable, I would watch a lot of like, it sounds silly, but like Cartoon Network,
Mhm.
where the plots were really easy to follow, and stuff like that. I would watch a lot of commercials because they would speak really clearly, and the goal was really clear that they wanted you to buy something. So,
Okay.
so I would learn that way. And of course, I learned with friends and all of that. But it was very difficult. I often joke that it took me a year before I had the guts anyway to like order a pizza on the telephone, right?
Right. Yeah, no,
yeah,
that's really good advice too for any students who are considering moving abroad, or any Country Day alums who are currently in college who are about to take that leap too. So, okay, so we have one last question for you, and I love this question. It was actually posed by an alum who was watching one of our other segments, but we would love to know, just sitting where you're sitting today, looking back at 12th grade Andy, what advice would you give to yourself about, how to go through life and what you've experienced so far?
Yeah, I think you touched on it before, and I've seen some of these interviews that you've done. They're all great with some of the alumni, and one of the kind of the common themes that you've all hit on, and I would repeat that is to follow your interests,
Mm-hmm.
right? And don't stress if your interests are leading you in a direction that you kind of don't know where you're going. You don't know what the end goal is.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're going to be doing something that you enjoy, find a way to do something that you enjoy, and you don't have to be even getting paid for it at first.
Mm-hmm.
Get on your feet, sustain yourself, and then stay involved with the things that you like and that you enjoy doing, and then keep building that network, right? And so that's the other thing that I would say is that, that's what's going to get you places, is not only, the foundation that Country Day has helped build, right? Mm-hmm. But the network of people in that field that you're interested in. Sure. So if you keep following those interests and you remain in that field, you're going to meet people who are going to think of you when something opens up, right? Exactly. So I would say that. I would also, if I was talking to myself, I would my 12th grade self, I would say, sports are great, but do follow your other interests as well. Maybe focus a little bit. If I was talking to myself, maybe focus a little bit more on that theater. Maybe try a little bit harder, maybe try to break that clique a little bit more, instead of, I was busy with other things, but
yes,
I could still be doing theater now. I'm not, definitely wouldn't be playing football anymore. And of course I might get back to it, but
sure.
Those interests, staying with those and plugging away at them is what advice I would give myself.
I love that, Andy. Well, thank you so much for doing this with us today. We're so
Thank you for having me.
It was so much fun. If students are interested in living abroad, journalism, things like that, is it okay if they reach out to you through me?
Absolutely. Awesome. Absolutely. Please do.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you again, and have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye. It was great talking to you.
My pleasure.
Bye.